We are Rogue Media Sports.
Is this house a good price compared to others in the area? Are prices going up or down? If I don't make an offer right this very moment, will I miss my chance? These are just some of the questions a home buyer might ask. And these are the sorts of questions an agent who is a Realtor can help answer. Because Realtors have the expertise, data, and access to specialty training to help you navigate the process of buying a home. They provide support, guidance, and have your back every step of the way. That's what Realtors do, because that's who we are. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And it is the Doomsday podcast. It is the Veterans Minicamp edition. Matt Mosley alongside Ed Werder. We have just come from Cowboys' third day of Veterans Minicamp, and Jason Garrett has sent the players off after a rousing, we couldn't hear it, Ed, but he looked like a kind of a rousing speech he gave them. He told them apparently, you guys be safe. You guys need to take care of your personal stuff out there and stay in great shape. I don't know if Landry used to say that to them back in the day. They used to not have really veteran mini camps, but he said, report in the best shape of your life. Ed Werder, flying back from Colorado to be in this immense heat. And Ed, boy, you hit the ground running, and we've got some unbelievable interviews lined up for our folks today.
Well, and you know, you mentioned the line about show up to training camp in the best shape of your life. And Daryl Johnston, who was there today, used to say that's what every player did back in the 90s. They showed up to Austin in the best shape of their lives for the start of training camp, and by day two, they were already in declining condition, and by the end of camp, they were in the worst shape that they'd ever been in during the entire course of the year. Now, those teams were challenged in terms of the climate in a different way. They didn't go to Oxnard, California, and have to wear sweaters when they're not taking reps. But I think this is an interesting season. Obviously, Jason Garrett, I think, has got a lot on the line in terms of, I think he's got to produce at least a playoff berth and maybe 2 playoff victories to retain his position as the head coach of the Cowboys. He's got a lot of new players. They've got a new philosophy on offense. They're without Jason Witten. They're without Dez Bryant. And they're without a lot of the coaching staff that were key elements for Jason Garrett the last couple of years. He's betting his job with some new people on his coaching staff, and we're going to get to that right after Frito plays the music.
And it is time to get ready for Ed's big interview. And Ed, I'm going to give you the opportunity, I should say, to introduce. I thought you did a great job securing an interview during a tense time when a coach was very upset at a player, and somehow you went in there, you calmed the situation down, and then you secured this guest. But first, Ed, we have a new sponsor at the Doomsday podcast. Her name is Marie. Now, her name's Marie Cesney, but she goes by Marie the Lease Lady. And here's how I decided to bring on sponsors. I want to go and use that product and go, okay, is this something we want? And Ed went ahead and put my wife in a new vehicle, lease, a Honda, 2018 Honda Pilot, gorgeous vehicle. And Marie's the one who made it happen. She is Marie the Lease Lady. You can find her at marietheleaselady@gmail.com. You can just email her, marietheleaselady@gmail.com, or you can call her, 469-879-2058. Ed, this is what you'll love about Marie. You get on the phone, you make things happen, and then you show up at a dealership, and it's like, okay, 5 minutes, the car, you're driving off in the car, and you save all sorts of money. She is Marie the Lease Lady. You can look her up also on Facebook. Find her that way. Ed, the next time you lease a vehicle, because sometimes you drive, you don't always fly to Colorado, I want you to use Marie's the Lease Lady. Welcome, Marie, to the Doomsday Podcast, Ed.
Marie, welcome to the podcast, and I'm not sure I appreciate Matt Mosley's example of teamwork here. I don't think my wife is driving around in a new lease car like Matt's is, but I guess he's the founder, and so whatever he says goes for the moment.
Jill can be in a lease before you know it, Ed.
And I just want to tell you, I've driven to Colorado one time since we bought a home there, and that was in the U-Haul, and that was 80 damn miles an hour on 287, and that truck has never been the same since I turned it back in.
If you would lease from Marie, you would have a vehicle that could handle that kind of trip.
All right, Marie, the Lease Lady, my call will be coming. Make sure you take it. Matt just gave out your cell phone number to the world.
With her permission, I might add. Marie, the Lease Lady, at gmail.com. Welcome aboard, Marie. So glad to have you. And Ed, go ahead and introduce our first guest of the day. This is our special edition Cowboys Veterans Minicamp edition. Ed, who did you secure today, and why was this man so angry?
Well, first of all, let's apply a little context. Kris Richard was the former defensive backs coach and defensive coordinator.
I got your context.
For the Seattle Seahawks, who in recent years have been to 2 Super Bowls, winning one of them. They've had obviously one of the great defenses in the history of the game. They've led the NFL in allowing the fewest points 4 times in 5 years. And it's a defense that was really built in a different way than the traditional NFL defense. And by that I mean the strength of the defense was in the back end, in the secondary, and that's what Kris Richard is coaching for Jason Garrett in a very pivotal year for him. As I mentioned, they lost Matt Eberflus, who was doing an awful lot of game planning and play calling on defense. As Rod Marinelli's top assistant, he moved on to the Indianapolis Colts. So now Kris Richard is going to handle a lot of those same responsibilities. And, you talk about this defense. Well, in a passing league, the Cowboys allowed more touchdown passes than all but 4 other defenses last year. And their 27 interceptions over the past 3 years combined is fewer than every other team in the NFL except for the Chicago Bears. So those 2 things have got to change under Richard, who believes that he's inherited an awful lot of good young talent. I had him break down the key players in the secondary. We talked about the issue at safety. We talked about his interest in acquiring Earl Thomas. And then, very late in the conversation, you joined in, and here is all of it.
So, Kris, wondering what your experience in Seattle, which has been one of the dominant defensive teams in football in recent years, and built uniquely because really built from the back forward. What did that experience do for you, and what have you brought here and installed as a result?
Well, it was just a humbling experience. Obviously, again, just being a part of something and building it from the ground up is always a task at hand. And it was just an honor and privilege to have been a part of that group and a part of the building process. And what we're looking to bring here is really the attention to detail and a standard of excellence. And that's really the bottom line. And that's what we're always going to be working towards and improving on a standard of excellence and just trying to improve it every day and raise the bar. Talking to Richard Sherman, obviously a great corner under you in Seattle, said that you're a guy who really demands a lot of accountability, teaches and relies on really strict fundamentals. Mm-hmm. Would that be a big part of your philosophy? Absolutely. And a big part of that is creating the dependability. Yes, we demand the accountability, absolutely, but that comes with creating the dependability. And when we're not doing right, then we have answers for it, and we have to answer for it because we're all counting on one another to do things correctly. And then that's when we give ourselves the best chance to be successful. You've moved one of the former first-round picks, Byron Jones, from safety to corner. What impression has he made on you at that position? Yeah, he's done a really good job. I'll say the first impression that I've had of him is what an awesome guy. He's humble, he's hardworking, He's focused. He's got the attention to detail, and he really cares about this football team. And he's a leader on this football team, and that's all the difference in the world. And they say he's a guy again who's played safety. He's had corner before in his past. He was a starter for us last year, and then for us to move his position, he's been positive and upbeat and embraced it right from the beginning, and that's all you can ask for from a guy.
What are your expectations for him at the new position? What opportunities do you think he'll have as a player there that he didn't get as a safety?
Yeah, I think he's going to have a great opportunity to show his ability and what he's capable of. He's got great length, he's fast, he's intelligent, and he's strong, and he'll be strong at the point of attack. So we're going to just look to continuously grow him in the technique and finishing on the football.
Another high pick from last year who missed a lot of this time of the year and a lot of training camp and suffered the consequences early on, but showed great potential is Chidobe Awuzie.
Yeah.
When you looked at the tape of him last year, what did you see and what are you seeing now as far as comparing those two guys?
Yeah, a big, powerful guy who's got quickness, he's got suddenness, he's got great anticipation, and he's got a really good head for the game. I say these are guys that fit the quote-unquote profile, what we've been accustomed to. Guys that
Long,
we need
physical.
to go out. Yeah, guys are going to go out there and be effective at the line of scrimmage and just challenge people down after down.
They've not done that here in the past. Is that difficult to get players to be willing to get up on the line of scrimmage and know what can happen behind them if they don't use good technique? And
that's the idea. Is that we coach a technique, and we stay true to the fundamentals of that technique, and that's where our confidence is built. It's just coming in the understanding and the repetitive, the practice of it, the repetition of it, that's where we grow comfortable with it and we grow to trust the technique. It's just with the consistency of it.
Is Awuzie a guy you see as a potential Pro Bowl level player at corner?
I think the sky's the limit for him. Obviously, again, a lot of that stuff, it isn't up to us, and naturally, our attention in general doesn't go there. We just want to be as good as we can be. And if everyone else wants to think us that and give us that accolades, that's cool. If they don't, it doesn't make a difference either. Either way it goes, it's not going to make a difference. We just want to be locked in, focus every day, just be our best.
And with Orlando Scandrick gone out of the equation as a slot corner, it seems like Jordan Lewis, who played a lot as a rookie, inherits a lot more responsibility in that role now.
Yeah, Anthony Brown also. So Jordan Lewis, Anthony Brown. I said we got guys that we feel really good about right now at this point, being able to go out there, compete, provide some depth, and make it really competitive for our football team.
I think the position the fan base seems worried about in the secondary is its safety. What concerns, if any, do you have in that? Among those 3 or 4 players? Kayvon Frazier,
yes.
and Heath, and some of those.
And Woods, yeah, sure, certainly.
Woods.
Yeah, I'm confident. I feel really good at this point in time, and it's because the level of character of our guys, we're going to get better. That's the deal, because our guys, again, we're young, we're focused. I think the hunger's there. I love the look in the eyes. I love how everybody's getting buying in, focused, and again, paying attention to the detail. You know, it makes a difference when guys care, and it makes a difference when, again, each one wants to teach one. You know, like I said, we're trying to build something special. You know, we want to be tribal-like. We want to be, again, more than a team.
A team within a team.
Yes, sir.
What about Earl Thomas as a guy who's obviously talked about that you've coached? Did you have an opinion that was solicited by the organization about whether that was a worthwhile, player to go try and get?
You know, I love him to death, and like I said, we've been together from day one, and I mean, he's not a part of our team, so it's hard to say anything about him, and even at this point right now, and I want him to be happy. It's really the bottom line.
The Cowboys, I know from talking to them, think he's still a great player on any team, even at 29, and despite some of the physical problems that he's had, and a guy who could add a lot of leadership, to in the right situation as well. Is that the experience you had with him?
I do agree. Absolutely. I do agree. I know he still certainly does have a lot left in the tank.
How will Richard Sherman do in San Francisco, given the rivalry that those two had over time? Yeah, no, he's
Sherm's a stud. Like I said, if anybody's going to be able to bounce back, he will. And like I say, he's another one. Like I said, we've grown really close over the years, and certainly just wish the best for him also. So I'm looking forward to seeing him back out there, regardless of what color uniform or jersey it is. It's just the people. People are special.
You know who he's very close to? I'm sorry, Ed and I are together. Not in a weird way, but
not in a philosophical way. And certainly not in a physical way.
I got that. He's close to Richard Sherman as well.
I already mentioned Richard.
Okay, they do have.
So ask a question if you got one.
I just wanted to add some of these things, some of these offsides. So, y'all were the Legion of Boom. There, have we got any good nicknames yet? Are we thinking of anything yet for this defensive backfield?
Not thinking of anything yet. You got to
want me to submit some things. Are you open to suggestions?
We have to earn the right.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, we won't name it.
Do you have pretty good speed in this secondary? Would you say?
Yes,
Legion of Zoom.
I thought he was talking about you because you're wearing cleats.
Yeah. I lost a step here and there. But that's clever.
What is the watching you? You were extremely. I was out here. Ed was vacationing in Colorado. I was out here the first day. You are very demonstrative, even whether it's stretching, getting involved with the guys. How important is that? I'm sure it's something you did in Seattle, but just to kind of be out there almost doing it with the guys.
Yeah.
Is that a big part of what you try to bring?
Yeah, it is. We're all in it together, and that's the deal. And really, when we're out here, it's why not do it with joy? Or, I mean, like, this is what we love to do. If this is what we say we love to do, then we should bring love when we do it. And that's really what it is, so the level of energy and things of that nature, it just comes natural. This is what I love to do. So why wouldn't I come out here and just let it show, and express it and show it and just have a great time doing it? Like, the game is tough enough as is. So we already have to lock in. We have to be on our details. We don't have to make it harder than what it is.
But people shouldn't get the wrong idea because he's wearing cleats and he's in the stretch line with his players. Because I just overheard a little bit of, hey, he can get tough on, he can be hard on guys.
Yeah.
I was trying to think if that was love he was bringing to Marquez White.
It is love. It is love. The truth.
Tough love.
The truth.
Truth is love.
Is love.
Yeah.
The truth is love.
I was just talking to one of your guys, Chido, and are y'all giving him an opportunity? He's obviously incredibly versatile, but in this OTAs and in this mini camp, it seems like y'all are letting him kind of stay in one spot, out on the outside. Is that purposeful? Like, let's let him get really, really comfortable in this spot, and then if we need to use him at other places, we know he can do that?
Yes. That's the emphasis, is making sure that we're kind of giving guys the best opportunity to get comfortable in certain positions, so we know we have things that we can count on. And that's what it is. We want to start building the things that we know we can count on, and then trust the fact that he'll be able to go inside and do the things necessary there too.
Do you ever catch yourself or worry about, you hold these guys to a high standard, but you have coached what some people consider one of the greatest secondaries of all time. Do you ever catch yourself and go, maybe I'm being a little too hard on them, or I'm holding them to a unrealistic standard, or not really?
No, because we all start from nothing. Every year, we all start from nothing. So we always take it back to square one, whether it's that secondary, this secondary, any secondary. Year after year after year, we come back square one and we restart whatever it is. Can never ever count on what we've been. We can never ever count on what we think we're going to be. We have to go and prove it and build it every day.
How much did the available talent here, what role did that play in your decision to take the opportunity with the Cowboys?
Oh yeah, it was a big part of it. I'm happy, and again, first and foremost, to be amongst a group of good guys. They are good guys, and that's what makes the difference. It starts with the man, and then the player comes.
Well,
what an excellent first appearance.
He did a good job. Yeah, I appreciate
Coach
it.
Richard. And
there he is, Kris Richard, Cowboys' new secondary coach. And Ed, I was struck by, in observing him, some interesting things. You could see. This is a very energetic. He is an exciting young coach, guy who obviously played in the league. I watched his body language when you brought up Earl Thomas and kind of shut it down a little bit, kind of like, I really can't say much here. But I do think there's a lot of love and a lot of thought that this guy still has something left in the tank. Now, I will just say from watching him at practice, there's no other coach out there. Marinelli's very loud and uses a lot of expletives. But this coach, Ed, you commented on it, had spikes on and had his cleats on. was warming up with the players, was stretching with the players, and I think, as he said to us, brings a tremendous amount of joy to football, and I think he's a breath of fresh air on this coaching staff.
Well, and you hinted at that it was an unusual set of circumstances. I was waiting for him to finish addressing the defensive backs as a group, and one player, Marquez White, a 6th-round draft pick last year, a corner, and a young player on the team, was addressing with Richard some issue, and Richard was not afraid to be very confrontational with him. I didn't hear everything they said, but he basically told him when he was ready to be coached and listen to what Richard had to say, they would reconvene the discussion. And as for some of the other issues he was bringing up to Richard, he should take those to Jason Garrett. So I was pretty impressed with how he handled it, because Richard's a guy who's he's dealt with a lot of in Seattle, you're dealing with, Ken Chancellor and Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman. Those are some big personalities.
Not shrinking violets.
Some big egos. And it's interesting to me that Richard was fired by Pete Carroll, whereas the previous 2 defensive coordinators, Dan Quinn and Gus Bradley, both left the Seahawks of their own volition for head coaching jobs. So he had a very different experience in Seattle than did his 2 predecessors, and yet he's very highly regarded here, and I think around the league, and just making some calls to try and figure out why Richard was fired. People in the Seattle organization said Pete just wanted different new faces and different voices, and some players really questioned a lot of the decisions that Pete and John Snyder have made up there as their salary cap situation has become dire and they've stopped going to Super Bowls. But Kris Richard, an interesting guy to watch on this Cowboys staff this year.
He was, and one of the names that came up is the Cowboys, by the way, continue to collect fired coaches. They've done a really good job this year of catching guys. Another one's the offensive line coach, Paul Alexander, fired after years and years at Cincinnati, but is highly regarded and thought to be a great offensive line coach. Cowboys were able to get him.
I wish that happened in journalism. I wish when guys lost their jobs, they were highly coveted and just was something out of their control that led to their availability.
That might be the case, but Ed, you have one of the greatest firings. You have one of the best deals in all of journalism, so let's not hear too much about your situation.
I wasn't talking about me.
I know you weren't. Chidobe Awuzie. While you were over there getting Kris Richard, so people know that today was the last day, so they all just kind of went running off. So Ed and I had to divide and conquer. And so Ed went over to talk to Kris Richard, and I decided, and one of the reasons I was led to go talk to Chido, we've been hearing great things about him, but Ed, one of our legendary buddy of ours, a legendary scout in this league, and used to be with the Cowboys for, 30 years or so, Gil Brandt slipped over, and as Gil said, he wanted to play some kind of trivia game with you, and said, how does he talk? What do you think about the next Pro Bowl player for the Cowboys?
Somebody who's never been to the Pro Bowl before, who has the ability to be in a Pro Bowl game. He asked me to guess who that might be, and
you guessed correctly.
And it was
Awuzie.
It was Awuzie, yeah.
Yes, you guessed Chido. And so I went over there and visited with Chidobe Awuzie, and here is our conversation where we hit on a lot of things, including how much, Chido, did you look at that Seattle secondary with Richard coming to work for the Cowboys? It is Matt Mosley, Doomsday Podcast. Ed Werder and I out here. Chidobe Awuzie, now wearing number 24 this season, finishing up the last of the Veterans Minicamp. And Chido, think back. I know last year you, Jordan, some of the others, were fighting some little, even in training camp, we're fighting some injury things. How different does this feel, just this whole minicamp and having a year under your belt?
The one takeaway is, we've come a long way. Experiencing in this league and the NFL, you can't buy it. You just got to kind of keep sticking through it, have to keep practicing, have to keep listening to your coaches. And, it's definitely a big jump that I feel like we've taken, especially mentally and our bodies, being able to handle this workload and our hamstrings and all that stuff. It's been healthy. We've all been healthy, and it's really a great sight to see that we're able to finally play confidently and with our whole body 100%.
Now you're breaking in as you get ready for your second season. You have a brand new secondary coach, and obviously Kris Richard, a guy who has quite a reputation from being around the Legion of Boom secondary in Seattle. What's that been like, adjusting to a new guy, and what has he brought to the unit?
It's been the best thing, for us as a young secondary, someone who's played the position, someone who's coached at the position at a high level. Obviously, everybody talks about the Seahawks being a dynasty of a defense, and a lot of the credit goes to Coach Richard, setting that tone. And I think he's done a great job of really letting us play free, gave us the technique, gave us something to work on and be a perfectionist at, become senseis, become masters at. And, every day he's out here running with us, he's motivating us, and I think it's going to pay dividends, because we're really becoming a tight-knit group, all behind him.
Did he, he's coached Jenkins and just so many, Earl, the whole gang. Has he ever said to you, Chido, I want you to look at this guy or watch a little film? I know y'all look at different people. Has there anybody specifically he said, take a peek at this guy?
Not really. It's definitely people that we ask of. And, Coach Richard, he's been everywhere. He's coached, a lot of great players. And I think we took an initiative as young players. We took initiative to look at those players ourselves, definitely in the offseason once we heard about the scheme we were going to play and man and cover 3 and stuff like that. So I think it's been, wonderful that we have, a foundation, players that have played in the system at a high level that we could tune in and then look at what they've done and how they could be successful, and we could hopefully do the same.
As we were talking, I hear he's getting on to one of your teammates pretty aggressively in the background. I don't know. I have to look and see who number 39 is, but he's just
Marquez White.
Okay. That's right. He's at Florida State. He's getting an earful right now from Coach. You have been billed as, okay, this guy can play a little bit of everything. You can, and I know that's one of your huge strengths, but in this camp, or in these OTAs and in this mini camp, have you been able to kind of sit in there and really focus on one thing for the most part? Have they allowed you to do that?
Oh, definitely. I think it's kind of something that's been more of the outside, the outside more than the inside. I haven't had any word from the inside that I'll play any position this whole camp, this whole OTAs, going into training. I've always played corner. I've been playing corner. So it's definitely something in the back of my mind that I know, it's one of my traits. Something that I'm good at is being able to be versatile and make an impact wherever I line up. So that's something I take pride in myself. But in terms of this team right now, it looks like I'm going to be playing corner.
Yeah, it certainly does, and it's kind of fun to see you, Jordan, some of you young guys getting this opportunity. How big? I know last year you were, you missed some time early, but looking back and when you got kind of thrown into it last season, how big will that be for you, just getting that experience, even though it wasn't always easy?
Man, I had to get on that field. If I didn't get on that field last year, I would definitely have felt different about this year. I know the NFL pace. I've played in big games, played in games that mattered, made plays in games that mattered, so I'm used to the pressure. And, as a football player, as an NFL athlete, pro athlete, you always want to pride yourself on your preparation. So that's a part of my preparation, is having that experience last year and, give me confidence this year.
You're a very competitive guy, and so I'm sure when you line up in this defense, you kind of like challenging these wide receivers. This is new for all of us. We've had Dez around here for a good long time. Right now, Terrence is out with the injury. Folks are dying to hear about some of these young receivers, and we don't even know Hearns that well, even though he's a veteran. Walk me through a couple of guys that sort of grabbed your attention from this receiving corps so far.
As a corner, you always, pride yourself on knowing who you're going lining up against. And we have a lot of great receivers, but all of them bring different things to the table. Obviously, you start with Cole Beasley, a shorter guy, but, he can play on the outside. He's real quick, gets in and out of his breaks real clean, really deceptive with his stems and his routes. You have Noah Brown, who's I'm watching right now. He's also the same kind of person, real quick, possession receiver, catches everything. Then you got guys like Michael Gallup, Allen Hearns, Deontay Thompson, who are all new, Tavon Austin, who are all new, who all different, bring things to the table. They're playing Tavon on the outside, inside. All these guys are very versatile guys. That's what I've kind of taken the takeaway, is that these guys don't play just outside or just inside. They all, switch positions and are able to execute at a high level.
I heard a famous scout earlier today told me, he said, well, one of the players that haven't been to the Pro Bowl yet, I've got my money on Chido.
Is that a goal for you, or have you set any personal goals kind of as you start to think about this season?
My only personal goal is to become the best player I can be. Whether that's Coach Richard teaching me a new technique, teaching me new things, being real receptive to him and Coach Jackson and our defensive staff, or whether it's me being in better shape. It's just me being the best player I can be, so I can help this team win. That's my ultimate goal is, playing a championship, win a championship. And I think that's our goal as a defense, is to be a world championship defense. So, that's our only focus right now. And once we win, everybody gets the individual goals. But if everybody's just focused on the individual goals, then that's when things probably start to fall apart as a team.
Since you brought up Michael Gallup, is that Colorado State, Colorado thing? Does that ever spill onto the field out here, the rivalry a little bit?
I mean, it's definitely, you got to lock in just because the implications. Like, if this dude catches the ball on me, and let's say it goes onto a picture or something, it's like, damn, everybody at Colorado going to be looking at me like, oh, Chido, what happened? The dude from Colorado State got you. So it's definitely more of a lock in, and I think he's thinking the same way. But we've grown. Actually, we became friends. We've talked. He's hit me up about things about how to, focus as a rookie, how to become better, and I've answered him and helped him. So, we're teammates now, and I love him as a teammate. He's doing a lot of great things as a receiver.
Was he even there yet when the last time you played them?
Yeah, he was. We played against him, and we smacked him pretty good.
All right, I'll tell McIntyre you said hi.
Most definitely.
All right, Doomsday. It is a member of the Doomsday defense, and it is Chidobe Awuzie finishing up minicamp.
Yeah, Awuzie, I think, has potential to be a fantastic player, and I think we all saw that. In fact, one former Cowboys coach compares him to Charles Tillman, known as the peanut punch-out, known for the peanut punch-out, who gets the ball away from ball carriers on a regular basis. He's a long, tall guy, very physical, and as you heard Richard say, they're going to play a different style of defense in the secondary. These corners are going to be on the line of scrimmage, and opposing receivers are going to have to fight them for space right from the very second the ball snapped.
Yeah, it is. I thought that was a great comparison. That's good stuff, Ed. Whoever told you that, because that is one of the better defensive backs to play in the NFL in the last decade. And you call him punch out peanut or whatever. And people that are wondering what that means exactly, he stripped a ton of footballs and was able to, and was maybe one of the best at that in the entire league, if not the best. And so the Cowboys' desperate need for creating turnovers, and quite honestly, Rod Marinelli, who is a legend as a coach and certainly made his bones under Monty Kiffin at Tampa Bay, then went to Chicago and did some really good things. For whatever reason, he hasn't been able to translate some of that success into the Cowboys' defense being ball hawking,
not on a
turnover happy.
Basis.
No.
Yeah.
And say that one more time, that stat about in the past 3 seasons, how many interceptions does this crew have?
They've got 27 interceptions the last 3 years. Only the Bears have fewer in that space of time.
That is a remarkable thing. Now, Ed, on the first day of minicamp, I had the opportunity after he had a big group around him. Those first 2 interviews you heard today, exclusive, Doomsday exclusives. This one was sort of a semi-exclusive. I kind of waited till things started to thin out with Rod, and then in the end, I made the interview my own, and I kind of shooed some people away, like y'all asthma fields over there. Okay, and so there's some interesting things that come up with Rod. I thought the most interesting, he talked about David Irving. He talked about DeMarcus Lawrence, 2 guys that they both need big seasons from. Lawrence coming off an all-pro type season, and then David Irving coming off some personal issues. He's back out there during this minicamp, and he's been doing some stuff on the side, and he's really...
What he's mostly been doing on the side is a lot of heavy breathing and like me, trying to find areas of shade where he can recover physically from running across the field.
He was not in shape for this minicamp.
Well, and I believe he said that he played last year at 312, and now he's down to 303, and he wants to get to 280. It's hard to imagine he's going to lose 30 pounds in the next 5 weeks.
Yeah, I'd love to do it if I could figure out how to do it. I mean, 30 pounds, that doesn't sound safe, though. I mean, the only way you do that is through just staying out in the heat, and you can, like, in one of those practices, these players sometimes can lose 5 to 10 pounds.
Nate Newton used to lose about 3 times that in a single practice at St. Ed's University in Austin. But I don't know. I don't really know why they would want him to be 280. He seemed very effective at the weight he played last year. when he played. But he's a guy that obviously they don't believe that they can completely count on yet, or they would have tendered him at a much higher offer, and there would have been a lot more interest around the league in signing him. He's been dealing with what he calls personal problems. He now says those are all behind him. They seem to be related to a relationship with a woman with whom he has a child. So hopefully it all comes together for him, and he can be one of the dominant young inside pass rushers in the game.
They call him Dino, short for dinosaur.
There aren't any dinosaurs around anymore, and this one's not been as available and as seen as frequently as they'd like either. He's just a fossil now.
He's on the point of extinction, it seems. Now, here is Rod Marinelli, and I want you to listen for a lot of this, but the main thing, Ed, that I got excited about, this is a guy who's been on with us a couple times and a big fan of the Doomsday podcast, some rare and interesting news that Rod shares his opinion on Jalen Smith. Is that his name?
That is his name.
Okay.
And I saw him run inside today, and he's running remarkably well.
Okay. Here's Rod.
If you play good, you don't have to worry about anything.
You don't coach better in contract years?
It doesn't matter. You just got to go. You do everything the right way.
How much of a challenge are the young guys back there? I know the cornerbacks and so forth have had a year under your belt now, but there's a lot of young youth back there. How much of a challenge is that for you?
You're talking about the back row?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The thing, they got a lot of experience last year. They played a lot. And we were hoping to even play more. A lot of them had hamstring injuries and some of those things. But so we got to see, especially the last 6 games or so, they were in there all. But those young guys all played and played pretty well. And I think they're taking another step right now. And I think Kris he's bringing everything out of them.
Is that, I know you've been asked about this, but a guy that's coached what's considered one of the great defensive backfields maybe in the past 20 years in the NFL, is that just can't help but rub off on some of these young guys?
Oh, no question. And his resume obviously is outstanding when he walks into the building. But it's the other thing. Once you meet him, you watch him coach, you watch him teach, how he relates to people, his energy on the field. Now you can see why the resume was like that.
Do you think back to where Chido, Jordan, some of these young guys were this time last year? Is it just a huge noticeable, just as far as comfort level? I mean, even we're just watching them a little in 7-on-7 and stuff, but they seem to, confidence-wise.
Yeah, I think he's done. I believe where it hurt us a little bit was we lost most of them in training camp. And they didn't have none of them had training camp. And so we went into the season and we got them back, one earlier and then one really late. But so where they're at right now is good. It's a good start for them.
Byron switched the corner. How is that?
I think it's going to be really
so
good. I really do. Because he is long and he is fast. He can jump. He can do those things. He's got one thing to learn that technique, and he is so conscientious. You know that. I mean, he's really a conscientious guy. And he's one of our leaders. I think it's going to be good.
How do you balance when you have a guy, he's got banged up a little bit right now with your first-round pick, is that, I mean, there's got to be part of him that's like, goodness, I need to be out there. I need to be out doing this. But then at the same time, you can't do the wrong thing and make him play through it. How do you get the most out of him in that situation, which has to be frustrating for him?
I think it's your walkthroughs are everything. You have to walk through. You make your walkthroughs game-like calls. It's all the calls, setting the defenses, knowing your gap responsibilities. And we do it as best we can. Now, the speed and the drill work, you can't get it. He's got to see it and do it, and he's very conscientious. But it's part of the game of football.
And I know you've been asked about this a million times, but since he's such a big part of, you need Jalen Smith to be a big part of this thing, like he was coming on last year. Have you seen even this offseason more strides for him? I mean, I know it's big for him to not be playing with a brace. We talked about, I mean, what are you seeing?
I see the first thing that kind of jumps out at me is how fast he looks. Last year he was fast, straight line. His movement in all direction, all his cuts and breaks to the ball, it just looks different. And it's been better and better on his leg, and no brace and all those things. But the cutting, he looks like when he came out of college a little bit. I hate to say that. Wait and see, but he's moving. He jumps out. You guys can see it from the side. You can feel it, right? And we feel the same thing.
Pretty inspiring guy.
Oh, yeah. To come back like he's done and never pout. Ever. He's just upbeat every day. He goes in that weight room last year, just upbeat. And that's part of the healing process, I think, your mental outlook.
One more thing on DeMarcus.
Yeah.
How challenging is it when you draw more attention as a pass rusher like he did second half of the season? And did you see his motor drop at all in that situation?
His motor never dropped. He was hungry, man. I mean, and you take it as a compliment. That should be the ultimate compliment. And then he's got to look over and say, okay, I'm getting doubled, I'm getting slid to. You have to win. Now you got to win. And that's what the good defenses do. You know, I can remember guys going, they knew they're going to get double, triple teamed. So I'll take it. But I ain't going to be happy unless we're winning over there. You got to win the game.
Is that pretty, speaking of guys that can benefit from all the attention he gets, you got Irving, shows back up today. That's been a story. Is that really encouraging for you to see after whatever he's going through?
I just love seeing it. You know, I have to be honest. I just love seeing the big dinosaur running around here. But and he's he's talented. And just right now let's go straight ahead. Let's just keep moving forward.
Because I mean, this guy is a guy. Obviously, when he's right, can make a huge impact for you.
He's proven that. He's proven it. So it's not like we're saying he's got the potential to do that. He's done that. So now we just got to just stay on track and just keep working with him and believe in him.
There he is, Rod Marinelli, Cowboys defensive coordinator. Love the intensity in that man. And Rod will go, and I don't know what in the world Rod would do during his downtime. I think he probably looks at charts and looks at more film. He does not seem like a guy who would go enjoy a time on the beach or anything like that. Ed, as we get ready to the Doomsday podcast will, of course, be going out to training camp. We might go. We're thinking about maybe going after that first game. We can go out there, spend about 3 or 4 days, and really see how the team looks after they've got one preseason game under the belt. That would be right around August 11th through 14th. That allows us to get out of the Texas heat and really enjoy ourselves out there, and hope you'll bring you some great information. Biggest question marks for me, Ed, I'll give mine, then I want you to give yours. I'll just say the receiving core, while interesting, and I'm fascinated with Tavon Austin, and he's a guy that in these what you would call underwear Olympic type events where you go out and you really can't tell much because they're not wearing true pads. They got shells on, they got some shorts on out there, so it's hard to tell much.
There's really
anything.
No contact.
But you can always sort of tell guys, okay, what's the speed like? What's this receiver look like? What does these guys look like in coverage? Those are really about the only things you can see. And Tavon Austin looks about like you'd expect. He's insanely quick, and he gets in and out of breaks. And, he'll be a big story going into the season. What can they get out of Tavon Austin? So this whole receiving core, that is a huge question mark for me going into this thing. Can they get what they need? And then the other thing is, and sadly, as much as I like this guy, he is somewhat of a question mark. Coming off a down year without Zeke, Dak Prescott sort of got exposed. And, of course, what happened in Atlanta without a left tackle, he just was a man on an island and quite honestly, didn't really seem to recover. So how is this receiving core going to go? So it goes hand in hand with, is this quarterback going to be able to bounce back from kind of what some might call a sophomore slump? Can he and Zeke get their swagger back and go back to being two of the most young and exciting players in the league?
Well, I think Dak had a brilliant first season and a brilliant first half of last season. And then Ezekiel Elliott got suspended and Tyron Smith got hurt, and they got exposed. They couldn't protect the quarterback anymore. I think he got sacked 10 times in the first half of the season, and he got sacked 22 times in the second half of the season. And he had 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in the first 8 games. So he was the same player through the first half of the season that he'd been in his when he was Rookie of the Year. So I don't have as many concerns about Dak, the player. I have concerns, like you suggested, about the players they're putting around him. Jason Garrett said that they wanted to emphasize having speed and explosion on offense. They want to be a running team, but they still want to be able to throw the football better than they did last year. And he thought there were times where they were a great running team that also had the great ability to create plays in the passing game, and they didn't do that last year. And now you're asking Dak Prescott to be a better player and have a better passing game without the two guys he relied on more frequently than any other, Jason Witten and Dez Bryant. And I understand why they did what they did with Dez Bryant. I don't disagree with it, but the reality is he has 39 touchdowns in the red zone since 2011. Nobody in football has more than that. So in the red zone, he was still a player who had to be accounted for by defenses. Now, can they do that a different way with a guy like Austin or Allen Hurns? I still think somebody has to emerge as a dependable number one receiver. Let's see if they still have that guy. And then I think the other part of the equation is, with Leighton Vander Esch being their first-round pick and them not going receiver, do they have enough depth at the linebacker position with he and Jalen Smith and Damian Wilson to survive if something happens to Sean Lee, like invariably it does? They couldn't overcome it last year. They addressed it in the draft right away. So what kind of player is Leighton Vander Esch, and can he be a significant contributor as a rookie on the defensive side of the ball at a position that's really caused them a lot of problems, and now they don't have Anthony Hitchens. So to me, those are the two big question marks, one on each side of the ball.
Well, a lot to think about, and we are excited to bring it to you, and we will certainly be out at training camp, and we'll start. We'll get Doomsday rolling again right at the start of training camp and react to everything Jerry says, and there'll be
everything.
Maybe not every single thing he says. Jerry did not speak today.
He was wearing kind of almost a gold jacket. I thought you brought out his Hall of Fame jacket, but
it's kind of what it looked like. Why would you have a sport coat on in 100-degree weather? I mean,
if you're doing live shots for various television entities, you might, but I don't think Jerry was doing it. He was off limits to the media today.
Correct.
Jerry and Stephen both off limits.
There's a story floating around about a Cowboys cheerleader that's causing them to perhaps not spend a lot of time doing interviews.
What did Rowdy do now?
Rowdy's salary has caused some ripples out there in Cowboys land. Rowdy, who apparently can earn by appearances on top of his base salary upwards of like $100,000. People all over the Metroplex are like, I'd like to go be a mascot. I could be the Cowboys.
Not anybody can do that,
but most people can. I don't know. I don't want to do it, but I'm just saying. I wouldn't want to do it because, think about the heat. Think of just being out in that kind of heat. And plus, Rowdy's a scary-looking mascot. I would hate to scare kids.
He's scary-looking?
It's a spooky. There's a kind of a maniacal grin that he has in that guy. I mean, I've always thought he's scarier to kids than entertaining.
I think he's just dangerous when he's on his ATV racing around, and who knows if he can see outside through the eyes of his costume, if it's properly aligned or not these days.
Oh, man. And one last thing, I want to thank Frito Nation Productions and what Mark Frito Friedman does for us. Does such a great job producing all this content.
Exclusively, too.
He had he had the Talk of Fame guys, and boy, those are some, you talk about egos. Whoa, man, the guys on that show. I know all those guys. We're friends with them.
And you know who their guest is DeMarcus Ware, who obviously decided that he'd rather be a part-time defensive line pass rush specialist coach with the Denver Broncos than he would the Dallas Cowboys. Both teams are apparently soliciting his involvement. He was here last week and worked with them, but so his arrangement with the Broncos is exclusive. He will not be permitted to be on the field with the Cowboys for the duration of the contract he signed with the Broncos yesterday. But I noticed Charles Haley was out there today working. So not a bad counter move by the Cowboys. Get a guy who's got 5 rings and is in the Hall of Fame and bashed Jason Garrett and lived to tell about it.
Yeah. Well, I heard Ware ask for Rowdy money. Well, and speaking of money, a little bit of breaking news coming in. Zach Martin officially has signed that contract, which we've been talking about for 2 or 3 days now. 7-year. $93.41 million contract. And so that deal has been done as we record this on Thursday afternoon. Of course, Ed and I have been out at minicamp with the Cowboys, and Zach reported to minicamp 2 days ago and has been a part of this thing. He had missed OTAs or all of OTAs while getting this worked out. The deal includes a $20 million signing bonus, and he is guaranteed $40 million is what will come out of this, and then all the base salaries are there. Ed, it makes Zach Martin the highest paid guard in the history of the NFL, and he surpasses Andrew Norwell, who just signed in free agency with Jacksonville. And so he will be able to surpass that. And I say $40 million guaranteed for a guard in the NFL. It's pretty good. And it's one area where the Cowboys have decided to load up, and they've allocated a lot of their money right there to this offensive line.
Well, people come to this podcast, I think, for unique perspective and occasional humor, and I'm going to attempt both simultaneously and say that if only the Cowboys had listened to their general manager in that draft and taken Johnny Manziel as Jerry Jones wanted to, instead of Zach Martin as everyone else wanted to, they could have saved themselves a hell of a lot of money. But as it is, they've got the highest paid left tackle in football in Tyron Smith, the highest paid guard in Zach Martin, the highest paid center in Travis Frederick. And this is the last season that Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott contracts can't be touched. So they could both, if they have big years, they could both be eligible to get renegotiated contracts next year. Obviously, Tony Romo and Jason Witten's money will come off the books. It's going to be an interesting offseason next year this time for Stephen Jones if the Cowboys achieve what he wants, which he said we expect to be a Super Bowl contender every year. If that happens this year, they are going to have some challenges mathematically in the offseason.
About a $90 million is what they in that decision to go with Zach Martin.
Nobody in the league has
Johnny.
3 offensive linemen making more money than their quarterback and their running back combined. So the Cowboys are built obviously a lot differently than other teams. And I think a lot of it, quite honestly, and I'm going to give him credit for it, this is Jason Garrett's doing. Jason Garrett's the one, when he was hired, wanted to emphasize building a strong offensive line, and this is where they've gotten to, historic proportions in doing so.
Yep. And his successor will be able to benefit, hopefully, from it.
And you know where some of that $40 million guaranteed can go.
Okay. No, you just want to walk over that joke. Where could it go, Ed?
I'm trying to help you with the segue to our new team members.
Oh, yes, exactly. And that I will talk to Zach about Hodges Capital. Hodges Capital, thank you so much. Craig Hodges in his group at Hodges Capital, they are coming in with us at the Doomsday podcast and gonna partner with us, and it's just incredible to have them. You'll be hearing a lot more about them, Ed, with the massive salary that you still command from ESPN. I would recommend you just dropping that off. You can do a direct deposit, I'm sure, over with Hodges Capital. Many people for years heard about them. They've been in downtown Dallas forever. The Hodges Fund is what they were kind of known as. Hodges Capital, that's kind of what they're known as now. But we just want to thank them and their involvement.
Absolutely.
And we're so excited to have them on board. Everybody have a wonderful rest of the summer, and then we'll be back to you before you know it. It is Matt Mosley for the Doomsday Podcast. Say goodbye, Ed.
Goodbye, Ed.
There are any number of reasons you might consider selling your home. To move closer to family, live within a smaller budget, or just wanting a change of scenery. Whatever your reasons, having to figure out all the various housing market trends in your area may not be what you signed up for. That's where an agent who is a realtor comes in. Realtors have the expertise to help you find the right price and navigate the process to sell your home in a way that's right for you. That's who we are. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.